Hi, everybody. I'm Rob from Rewind Video, along with my co-host, Bob.
Oh, hi.
We're here today with a mini episode to talk about Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga.
Yes, we are.
So, Bob, I wanted to start off by asking, what were your expectations for this?
Madness to the max.
I like that.
Yeah. So I knew that this was not going to be Fury Road all over again, which it wasn't.
Yes.
And I'm thrilled about that.
I was a little skeptical because I knew it wasn't going to be Fury Road, but I was afraid they were going to try to be Fury Road.
Yes.
But ultimately I trusted George Miller to give us an interesting experience at the very least.
Nobody knows this franchise better, and nobody does it better.
Nobody's ever done it.
Nobody.
Besides him, yeah.
Nobody. Yeah. This is his. This is his baby.
Yeah.
And I think that he made something remarkable with Mad Max Fury Road, and so the bar was high to follow it up with something that audiences would love in the same way. And I think he took some risks, but in my opinion, they paid off. I really enjoyed. I enjoyed this more than I thought I would.
I agree. I think the Mad Max movies are, and I think a lot of people lost sight of this because of Fury Road, but they were very offbeat movies. They're very weird genre movies. They're exploitation movies.
Yes.
They're post-apocalyptic exploitation movies with cars. And so I think people were expecting more of like this big blockbuster popcorn movie. You know, this movie did not do well at theaters. This movie is like very much not.
Bombed.
Yeah, bombed. But also like crazy. Fury Road didn't do great.
No. It did a lot better on DVD and streaming. I mean,
but the standards of the modern blockbuster, it was way short. Like if we think of like a modern blockbuster, like $1 billion movie. You know, a Fast and Furious movie makes minimum $500 million, maybe up to like $800 million for like a Fast and Furious movie. Fury Road, maybe the best action movie of all time. I think it made like $200 something million. So we think of it as this like an incredible masterpiece, which it is, but it wasn't like this giant hit. So I think people were like, they had the wrong expectations going into this. Yeah. And I think this is kind of more along the lines of the old Mad Max movies.
I think it is. It's interesting that we're, for the first time, really focused on a character that is not Max. But absolutely, to your point, lives in that world as well as any of the other stories he's told prior to this one. And so it doesn't bother me in the slightest. We don't get any Mad Max here. We get Furiosa. But, I mean, her debut in the last movie was phenomenal, and how can you not want more of that?
Yeah, I was happy to get more. I was happy to get 2+ hours, whatever it was, more of that. Every time an engine was like revving in the background, I was like, I feel like I'm at home.
But I also appreciate the fact that, if you're only going to tell a Mad Max story, you're getting such a small slice of this fucking crazy world that these characters occupy. And in the same way that I wish Star Wars would do this more and get away from their core characters and core stories, I like that George Miller is like, okay, well, we're just going to sidestep away from what you have been familiar with and show you just more of this place and the people who occupy it. And to me, it makes the Mad Max stories richer because now I understand a little bit more about this world.
But it's also not trying too hard to build this world up. It's giving you the story. It's giving you what you need to know. But it's not like pushing it too hard, which I appreciate.
I think it leaves still a lot to the imagination. I mean, you get a lot, but you're also like, well, what else is there? I'm sure it's even crazier if you go a few miles to the east.
And what's happening in the rest of this isn't that far in the future from the original Mad Max, which happened in a world that was not like this. It was like just starting to fall apart.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. It's crazy how the timeline works, where it's like, okay, like this happened quick. There's like some sort of there's some sort of radiation, so like people get fucked up and stuff.
sure do.
But like these people, like the older people in this world in Furiosa, like they were in the real world, like the old world, right? Like they were around during old times, I think. Like it's only like Mad Max had like a job, so like he's still around. So this is like 10 years later.
Yeah.
So like these people had lives in the old times, So a character like Dementus, who is like, I don't know, like he's this, charismatic leader, like leading this populist movement against another bad leader and whatever. But you get like the slightest bit of his backstory. He kind of alludes to it about like a wife and a kid, I think.
Yeah.
Which is kind of Mad Max's backstory too.
Yeah.
But you're like, this guy was like just a regular dude at some point, Like he struck me as like a car salesman,
Right.
You know, who just like has a lot of charisma and like was like, I'm just doing what I need to do to get by in this world. Like this is a fucked up world. Like this is the only way to get by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so like I'm just gonna have my gang, my motorcycle gang. Like he just he didn't plan this from the beginning. He just was a guy that all of a sudden he's on his motorcycle, and dudes are following him around.
Yeah.
So it's just it's crazy how like the world just like descended so quick.
It is.
Because like when that happens, all these like Immortan Joe, that guy was like, what was he 10 years ago? A truck driver?
Yeah.
Like now he's like this like crazy leader.
Yeah.
Like what was he doing? Like was he so great?
I don't know. I think that's what's kind of magical about this franchise is that, you have to see all of these characters through the lens of like, well, they lived in a normal society.
20 years ago, Immortan Joe was like had a job with a boss.
Right.
Like someone was like, mop the floor, Joe. It's crazy to think about. It just happened so fast.
Yeah. This is, for all the things that it does differently than Fury Road, and I think there's a lot more narrative here. I mean, like Fury Road is a small story, and this is,
it says it right in the title. It's a saga.
It's a saga.
Like it has the 5 chapters, and it goes through, and it's a story. It
is a story, but it's not without a lot of the things that we all loved from Fury Road. I mean, there's some great action in this. The stunts are incredible.
Yes.
I think he upped the game from Fury Road in a lot of ways, and I didn't think that would be possible.
There's also like, it wasn't quite as like visceral as Fury Road. And I think a lot of that is just because of the fact that Fury Road was kind of a nightmare to produce. And so they weren't going to they just weren't going to do that again.
Right.
Even if George Miller was like, I'm going to make this, the sequel to Fury Road and like do exactly what we did. Like there's no way, like that was never going to happen.
Yeah.
They were not going to shoot in Namibia again. They were not going to like take 20 years to shoot this movie or to make the movie.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. It was just never going to be Fury Road 2.
Right.
And I think they're hitting enough of those beats that like they're scratching those itches, but also giving you an interesting new story.
And maybe that's why it didn't do as well, is that you have to really be invested in the Mad Max world in order to want this, because we have Fury Road. It exists and we can watch it anytime. This isn't for people who aren't, I think, committed to just like really delving into this crazy
in a way,
George Miller fantasy.
It's kind of a miracle that we got this. I don't know. It sounds like because this movie kind of bombed, that we're not going to get another one.
Yeah. But
maybe there's a world. Maybe maybe somebody was like, you know what, you can make another one for $15 million. Yeah, and that would be really interesting. It would be really interesting to see what would come out of that. I don't think it's going to happen like that, but maybe.
Yeah, I'd be interested in revisiting this place, but I've seen the same headlines you have, and I've wondered, okay, well, how do I feel if this is the end of just Mad Max as we know it? And I can't imagine another director doing it, at least doing it the same way. And I think I'm satisfied with this being the end.
I wouldn't be upset.
Yeah. I mean, especially since with this sequel, we ended up looking backward. And I mean, this dovetails right into where Fury Road begins.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're great. It's a great double feature. But yeah, it could be that the end of Fury Road is the end of, the Mad Max story.
Yeah, which I hope it's not, but it wouldn't be the worst way to end this.
No, I don't think it would. I do love, and I think we get a little bit more of this in Furiosa than we did in Mad Max. I do love how fucking weird George Miller's brain is.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, the world that he builds, I can't imagine coming up with it. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, I mean that's what's beautiful about this series. It's
Yeah.
just fucking weird.
Yeah, he's got, the circle of Tim Burton and the circle of George Miller overlap to create a Venn diagram with a little bit of,
Yeah.
But
Are you talking about the Planet of the Apes remake?
no, but I can see why you asked. I love directors that aren't afraid to be themselves, and George Miller absolutely is just like, this is me.
This is what I think is cool.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, I would say you recommend it.
I highly recommend
Highly
it.
recommend
I would
it.
say go see this. I definitely see it in the theaters if you can. I mean, if it's still there.
If it's still there when you're listening to this.
Yeah, and see it legally, if for no other reason than to potentially bump it up to the point where maybe another movie gets funded.
Definitely. I obviously recommend it as well. I love this movie. I thought it was great. I don't think it's as good as Fury Road, but
Not quite.
yeah, that's I mean, that's no knock against it.
It's a hair lower for me, but
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's not much lower.
yeah. Fury Road was so surprising,
Yeah.
and this was great, but in the same way that Fury Road is. So
Well, I think that's a wrap on our thoughts about Furiosa.
yes.
And so be sure to check out our regular episodes every other Thursday and follow us at rewindvideopod.com, and we will see you next time.
We will see you next time. We'll be back.
And hail Satan.
Hail Satan while you're at it.
Hail Satan. Hail Satan.
Yes.